Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the very doors closing in your life right now, the delays that frustrate you, the relationships that ended, the opportunities that slipped away, are not signs that God has forgotten you, but proof that He is moving you into a season of blessings so big your current life couldn't even hold it? What if everything you're calling a setback is actually divine preparation? Stay with me, because in the next few moments you're going to discover the 7 undeniable signs that God is preparing you for a breakthrough you never saw coming. Blessings begin long before they reach your hands. They begin the moment something inside you shifts, quietly, inwardly, sometimes without your awareness. You start to feel a subtle loosening of the mental knots you've carried for years, a softening, a release. It may not look like a miracle from the outside, but within you, a divine transition is taking place. It's the moment when you move from resisting life to allowing it. And that is the first sign that God is preparing you to receive blessings far greater than anything you've imagined. Resistance is a natural human impulse. We hold on tightly, sometimes to pain, sometimes to certainty, sometimes to what feels familiar even when it no longer serves us. We believe that control keeps us safe, that planning every detail shields us from disappointment. Yet the more we resist, the more drained we become. Blessings cannot flow into a clenched fist or a closed heart. And so, at some point in your spiritual evolution, God whispers into your life through circumstances, intuition, or a sudden awareness, let it go now. It's time to allow. You might notice that this shift doesn't happen through force, it happens through fatigue. You simply become tired of fighting, tired of worrying, tired of trying to fix everything, tired of being the only one holding the world together. And in that tiredness, something sacred opens. Wayne Dyer often emphasized that surrender is not giving up, but giving over to a higher intelligence, a loving source, a divine orchestration far wiser than human planning. When you reach this stage, even if you can't explain it, there is a peace that begins settling into your spirit. That peace is preparation. You may observe this shift in your daily thoughts. Where there used to be fear, a faint trust rises. Where there used to be urgency, patience begins to form. Instead of questioning, why isn't my blessing here? You start sensing that everything is right on time, that nothing is delayed, and that perhaps the journey itself is shaping you into someone who can receive what you're asking for. This is not resignation. This is alignment. It is the soul's way of stepping into harmony with God's timing instead of wrestling against it. Allowing is different from passivity. It's not sitting around waiting for life to happen. Allowing is the active collaboration between your soul and the divine. It is saying, guide me, show me, use me. It is the willingness to be led even when the path isn't lit. You begin to trust that the next step will be revealed when it's meant to be. And in that trust, your energy shifts. You move from survival mode to creation mode, from fear to flow. Another sign of this inner shift is that you start seeing life through a more expansive lens. You notice synchronicities, small coincidences that feel too intentional to dismiss. Someone calls at just the right moment. A message appears the moment you are praying for guidance. An opportunity arises when you thought the door was shut forever. These are not accidents, these are affirmations. They are gentle reminders that you are no longer walking alone, that something unseen is rearranging details on your behalf. As resistance fades, your desires become clearer. You no longer chase blessings from a place of desperation, but invite them through clarity and openness. You stop demanding specific outcomes and start trusting that God knows the shape of the blessing better than you do. You become more interested in internal transformation than external validation. Your prayers become less about asking for things and more about asking for alignment, wisdom, and the ability to handle what you're asking for. Surrender also brings emotional clarity. Old wounds begin to surface, not to harm you, but to heal you. You may suddenly remember unresolved pain or feel drawn to forgive someone you thought you'd forgotten. This is not regression, it's spiritual cleansing. Blessings require room to land, and God often prepares you by clearing out the emotional clutter that has weighed you down. When you surrender, you stop resisting this healing process. You let the past pass. You let your heart breathe again. And a heart that breathes is a heart ready to receive. As you embrace allowing, your internal dialogue changes. You stop criticizing yourself for every misstep. You stop treating yourself as unworthy or unready. You begin to speak to yourself with more compassion, more patience, more understanding. These subtle shifts are powerful indicators that something divine is unfolding. Blessings come not only to those who believe in God, but to those who believe that they are worthy of receiving what God has prepared for them. This shift from resistance to allowing also affects your relationships. You stop forcing connections that drain your peace. You stop chasing people or situations that were never meant for your growth. You understand that some people are part of your story but not your destiny. You release the need to convince anyone of your value. Instead, you begin gravitating toward environments and individuals that resonate with your spirit. This is God preparing your circle to match your blessing. You might notice more quiet moments arriving in your life, moments of reflection, stillness, and contemplation. These are not empty spaces, they are invitations. They are divine pauses where God prepares your mind and spirit for the next chapter. Wayne Dyer taught that the quieter the mind becomes, the louder intuition grows. As resistance dissolves, your inner voice becomes clearer, more confident, more precise. You begin trusting your instincts not as emotional reactions but as spiritual guidance. And then something beautiful happens. Gratitude rises naturally. Not forced gratitude, not the kind you practice out of obligation, but the kind that wells up from realizing that even the challenges you faced were shaping you for something meaningful. You begin to appreciate not just what is going well, but what used to go wrong. You start seeing the purpose behind the detours, the lessons behind the losses, the blessings behind the delays. Gratitude is the ultimate vibration of allowing. It opens the door to divine flow. When you shift from resistance to allowing, you transform into a vessel ready to receive. Your heart is softer, your mind is clearer, your spirit is more open. You no longer stand in your own way. You no longer argue with the timing or judge the process. You simply trust. And in that trust, God prepares you, not by changing your circumstances first, but by changing you. You may not always recognize it while you're in the center of it, but every closed door carries a deeper intelligence within it. What looks like rejection from the outside is often divine protection on the inside. There are moments in life when you pray for something, work for something, expect something, and instead of receiving it, you watch the opportunity slip away. In the human mind, this feels like loss. In the spiritual mind, it is redirection. And this redirection is one of the clearest signs that God is preparing you for blessings that require you to be somewhere else, someone else, or aligned with something far better than what you originally imagined. Wayne Dyer taught that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. That wisdom becomes deeply relevant when you face a closed door. Instead of viewing it as something taken away from you, you slowly begin to see that you are being moved away from what is not in your highest good. You are being guided, repositioned, realigned. The universe is saying, this is not where your blessing lives. And although it may feel painful, uncomfortable, or confusing, the redirection is intentional. It is the hand of God rearranging your path so that you arrive in the exact place where your blessing can reach you. You start to notice this redirection through subtle shifts at first. Opportunities you thought were meant for you suddenly lose their appeal. People you depended on begin to distance themselves. Doors you relied on begin to close. What used to excite you no longer matches your spirit. This discomfort is not punishment, it is preparation. It is God removing everything that is not aligned with where He is taking you. Sometimes the redirection comes through disappointment. You apply for something and do not get it. You invest time in someone who does not stay. You attempt a project and it falls apart. In the moment, it feels like failure. But with spiritual maturity, you begin to understand that this is how divine timing works. If you received what you wanted at the wrong time, the blessing could become a burden. If you entered a relationship that wasn't aligned with your purpose, it could detour your destiny. If you succeeded at something that wasn't meant for your soul, you could lose yourself in the process. The rejection protects you from misalignment. There are also times when the redirection is abrupt and unexpected. You're moving confidently toward a plan, and suddenly the path disappears. Something shifts, a job ends, a friendship changes, a familiar structure collapses. You may feel lost for a while, But this disruption is often the clearest sign that you're being pushed towards something better. God will sometimes allow the ground beneath you to shake so that you stop clinging to places that can no longer support the blessing He wants to bring into your life. The redirection can also show up as a deep inner knowing. You wake up one day and feel inspired to take a new path. You feel drawn to a different direction. You may not have the full picture, but your intuition quietly urges you to move, to explore, to change. Wayne Dyer believed intuition was the voice of the soul, the whisper of divine guidance. When God is preparing you for blessings, He often communicates through this intuition, nudging you away from what is draining your spirit and toward what expands it. As this process unfolds, you start noticing that people who were once central in your life fade into the background. Conversations no longer feel aligned. Priorities shift. You stop needing validation from those who do not understand your growth. Relationships based on fear, control, or old versions of yourself naturally begin to dissolve. You are not losing people. You are losing attachments that cannot follow you into your blessing. God clears your circle because the blessing requires a healthier, more supportive environment. Divine redirection also manifests through your emotions. You may feel restlessness where you once felt comfort. You might feel irritation in places that used to feel familiar. This is the soul's way of telling you, you have outgrown this. It's not the environment that has changed, it's you. When God is preparing you for a blessing, He upgrades your internal world before He upgrades your external one. You begin desiring growth over comfort, purpose over convenience, truth over appearance. You feel an inner push toward becoming more authentic, more aligned, more conscious. One of the most powerful aspects of redirection is that it exposes what you have settled for. When you experience a closed door, you begin to see how small you were thinking. You realize the plan you held so tightly wasn't big enough, wasn't expansive enough, wasn't reflective of your true potential. Sometimes God takes away what you wanted to show you what you deserve. The rejection becomes the pathway to revelation, a revelation of your worth, your value, your purpose. As you walk through the season of redirection, you begin to trust the process in a way you never could have before. You start to recognize patterns. Every time something is removed, something better replaces it. Every time a door closes, a clearer path opens. Every time you're pushed away from something, you're pulled towards something greater. This pattern builds faith, not blind faith, but experienced faith, the kind that comes from witnessing the grace behind every detour. The most transformative part of divine redirection is the shift it creates in your perspective. You begin to see that what looks like chaos is often divine order rearranging your life. You start to understand that the things you thought you lost were never meant to stay. You realize that rejection was never about your worth. It was about your direction. Wayne Dyer often reminded us that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Redirection embodies that truth fully. You also learn to become more adaptable and open. Instead of clinging to old plans, you become willing to follow the whisper of inspiration. Instead of fearing the unknown, you begin to trust it. You stop resisting the shifts and start flowing with them. This flow is not passive, it is empowered. It is recognizing that you don't need to force what is meant to be, and you don't need to chase what is not aligned. What belongs to you will always find its way when you are positioned correctly. In the presence of divine redirection, your faith deepens. You begin to see that God is not removing things to hurt you, but repositioning you to bless you. You become more attentive, more intuitive, more spiritually aware. You learn to release your grip on the outcome and allow the journey to unfold with wisdom and grace. And slowly, you begin to see the blessing forming, not ahead of you, but within you. The redirection didn't just lead you to a better place, it led you to a better version of yourself.